2012, the Mercedes A-Class has completely reinvented itself. It's moved from quite an innovative MPV to this more conventional but hugely more appealing family hatchback that can now finally rival an Audi A3 in the style stakes. This is the proper mini Merc we've all been waiting for, from the style to the interior and even the price. You're looking at just under £19,000 for an entry-level A180, and if you want this A250 engineered by AMG, well, you're not going to get much change from 30 grand. So to find out if this car really is worthy of the three-pointed star, we're going to go on a road trip from the rainy shores of Lake Windermere right through to the city of Liverpool, another place that is hugely famous for reinvention in recent years. Some Mercs still have that old man's motor image, and I think the previous A-Class was guilty of that. However, when you get to the new one and you notice this big bluff front end and the fact that it's inherited the same grille as the concept car, you know the differences are going to be like chalk and cheese. And then when you step inside, it's a completely different ball game. You've got this really high set dashboard, very sporty steering wheel, and obviously these single section figure hugging seats. And it just feels like it's been designed for an entirely different audience. And then there's loads of cool technology beyond the passive and active safety that Merc's become famous for. I'm talking about this floating tablet center console that you now control with this rotating dial, and the fact that you can have full integration through your iPhone, so you can download the Mercedes-Benz app and then control your music or your Twitter accounts, and even sat-nav, meaning you don't have to spend thousands on the optional satellite navigation system. It's very clever stuff, and from here, this car feels like a hugely desirable place to be. The British B-Road brings out the best and worst in the new Mercedes A-Class. The good news is that the steering is wonderfully precise, very accurate, really nice and eager on turning, and the body control is taut too, so there's very little body roll. The bad news, however, is that that level of comfort that you expect from a Mercedes-Benz simply doesn't exist, irrespective of what spec you go for. It almost feels like the car's been engineered on 15-inch alloys, when in reality, most customers are going to be doing like what we've done and spec'd 18-inch alloys. The other issue I've got is the A250 turbocharged petrol engine that we're testing. It's the wrong engine. We'd probably recommend the 200 CDI, because 0 to 62 in this takes 6.6 seconds, which is pretty quick, but it's hardly what you'd call worthy of AMG badge status. The trouble is as well that you have is that if you really want, you know, a long-legged diesel with comfort, then an Audi A3 now offers a pretty tempting proposition. We're in Liverpool. This is my city. You hear a lot about the fast-talking, independent, witty and slightly cheeky spirit of the people, but the buildings are equally important. We're on the way to the waterfront now, which for the last 100 years has been defined by the docks, but also the Three Graces, these three majestic Edwardian buildings. But as part of Liverpool's regeneration project, there's also going to be a whole host of new buildings that are going to define the waterfront landscape now, culminating in the £72 million Museum of Liverpool. And very much like how the new A-Class is redefining what this car should be all about, these new buildings have got to respect the heritage of the old buildings, but they also need to form a relationship so the waterfront works as a cohesive whole. That's going to be absolutely fundamental to the success of the waterfront. Very much like how redefining what the A-Class is about is going to be fundamental to the overall success of the Mercedes-Benz range. So we're going to catch up with a few designers now that are hopefully going to shed a bit more light on that.
It's every designer's dream to be given the brief to do something completely new, and it was the case with this car that we were told, right, we want something which is completely different to the previous generation A-Class. We want something that makes a design statement that attracts new customers to the brand. If I was to answer anybody, if they would say, well, explain to me why this design is a Mercedes, because it is completely new, then I would say it's about the volume, the general volume that you have. So volume for me is the section that you have here. Yes, there's a lot of movement and there's a lot of surface entertainment, but in general, it's got a very strong volume. And we work really hard on that to get that just right.
When we started with the first design sketches, we had just finished our SLK and SL, so we were quite in a sporty direction, and this was something that also inspired us here for the car and fits very well to the exterior, which is also very, very sporty and fresh. And what we've done here with the interior is that we've structured the dashboard into an upper body and a lower body. And the upper body, as you can see, has got the same kind of wing shape that you'll find in our sports cars. This is the first car on the street that I really have completely designed, or was responsible for the design, and it's a fantastic feeling.
The parallels between the Waterside project and the Mercedes A-Class are uncanny in the sense that both are total mixed bags. On the one side, the Museum of Liverpool has been relatively successful with the clean stone white surfacing and the good use of gallery space, but then that's sat right next to the Man Island apartment complex, which is so overwhelmingly disgusting it's been nominated for the architectural equivalent of the Raspberries. And then when you move on to the A-Class, well, the exterior and the interior design have been really well resolved, there's no question about that. But the ride comfort that you associate with the Mercedes-Benz isn't there. Still, it's a brave move, the A-Class, and one that feels fitting for that new generation.